Superheroes aren't just entertainment, they're reflections of who we are and who we wish we could be. From ancient myths to comic books to billion-dollar movies, these stories have always carried deeper meaning. So, what do they mean today, in a world fractured by crisis, change, and cynicism? And as James Gunn takes the reins of the DC Universe, what should his heroes stand for? Before superheroes became franchises, they were myths, our modern gods, stories we told to understand ourselves. Every generation has its legends, figures larger than life shaped by the fears and dreams of the time. For us, those legends were capes. Superman is our sun god, a messiah sent from the stars, limitless power anchored by human kindness. Wonder Woman steps straight from ancient myth, an Amazon born of gods torn between peace and war. Batman? He's a mortal who turned pain into power. He doesn't fly or lift buildings. He endures, he outwits, he refuses to give up. These aren't just characters, they're archetypes, our hopes, our fears, our shadows. We keep rewriting them because they keep rewriting us. Just like Hercules and Odysseus in ancient Greece, these are our modern mythological heroes. Like ancient mythology, superhero stories make morality feel urgent. They don't ask small questions. They ask, what do we sacrifice to save others? What is strength without compassion? In Man of Steel, Superman must choose between his people and his adopted planet. In Wonder Woman, Diana learns the truth. Humanity isn't corrupted by a god. It's just flawed, and she chooses to love it anyway. In The Dark Knight, Batman is forced to break his own rules to stop a man who has none. These stories give us space to wrestle with impossible choices, because deep down, there are choices too. And yes, superhero stories are fantasy, but good fantasy doesn't take us away from the world, it takes us deeper into it. In Shazam, a child is given godlike powers, but the real story is about found family and learning to believe in yourself. In the death of Superman, heroes grieve, fall apart, and find meaning again. These stories offer safe places to feel unsafe things: grief, shame, longing, rage, hope. And through the escapism they offer, they make us reflect on our world. But superhero stories don't only make us reflect on our world, but ourselves. Ultimately, superhero stories speak to those who feel different. Superman is the ultimate outsider, a refugee, an immigrant, always wondering if he belongs. Cyborg is transformed against his will, a black man made into a machine, searching for the humanity he fears he's lost. Barry Allen, a shy, awkward kid who thought he'd never fit in, until he became the fastest man alive and found his true self. These characters say being different isn't a weakness. It might just be your superpower. So when the world falls apart, we turn to heroes, not for answers, but for possibility. In Superman Returns, he says, "You say the world doesn't need a savior, but every day I hear people crying for one." Because superheroes remind us that no matter how dark it gets, there's always something worth saving, even if it's just a spark. But myths don't exist in isolation. They adapt, or they disappear. And superheroes have been adapting for over 80 years, shaped by wars, politics, pop culture, and profit. So what happens when our gods, our modern mythology, gets merchandised? When myth meets market? That's where we go next. Superheroes reflect who we are, but they're also shaped by what we buy. Superheroes don't live in a timeless world, they live in ours. Let's take one hero, one symbol, Batman. He's been around for over 80 years, and in that time, he's been everything, from a crime-fighting detective, to a traumatized vigilante, to a meme. And that's the point. Batman changes, not because he's inconsistent, but because we are. In the 1960s, Adam West's Batman was campy, colorful, and safe. He solved crimes with riddles and gadgets, not fists. That Batman reflected a post-war America, optimistic, consumer-friendly, and terrified of controversy. Then came 1989, Tim Burton's Batman. Gothic, isolated, haunted. The Cold War was ending, crime was rising, and cities were seen as broken jungles. Batman became a darker protector, because the world no longer felt safe. Fast forward to 2008, The Dark Knight, a post-9/11 world. Terrorism, surveillance, moral ambiguity. Heath Ledger's Joker wasn't just chaos, he was an ideology. And Batman, he became the uncomfortable hero we didn't want to need, a symbol of sacrifice in a world with no clean answers. And then 2022, The Batman with Robert Pattinson, a Gotham soaked in dread, not loud, just tired. A city eroded by corruption, disconnection, and institutional failure. Batman here isn't fighting villains, he's fighting emptiness, trying to make meaning out of trauma in a world that no longer believes in heroes. Every Batman is a time capsule, a cultural X-ray. He reflects not just crime, but how we feel about justice, about fear, about control, about change. And that's what makes superheroes powerful. They evolve with us, not because they're trend chasers, but because they are cultural mirrors. Every time the world changes, so does the hero it needs. But when every film is a superhero film, what makes any of them matter? The genre has become an industry, and when myth becomes mass-produced, meaning can get lost. Take Justice League 2017. A Frankenstein product spliced together for mass appeal. The result? Hollow spectacle. Compare that to Zack Snyder's cut. It may be long, it may be messy, it may be controversial, but it knows what it is. Because these stories need space. They need care. Because when superheroes become content, the purpose of their existence is lost. Now, thankfully, superheroes don't just live on screens or in comic books. They live in us. Fandom isn't a sideshow, it's the beating heart of it. Walk through Comic-Con. Cosplay, language, ritual, smiles, people dressed as Kryptonians and Atlanteans just to feel a little more human. That's because these stories mean so much to people. So now we know superheroes evolve with time. They can be reduced, exploited, even weaponized. But they still matter. The question is, what kind of stories are we telling through them now? And what kind of stories should we be telling? Because superheroes aren't just a genre, they're a vessel. The real power lies in what we choose to pour into them. What makes a superhero story work? Is it the costume? Or the powers? Not really. It's actually the question behind it. Every superhero story, at its core, asks the same thing. What do you do when you have power? It's not about saving cats from trees or punching aliens. It's about moral pressure, about consequence. Man of Steel doesn't ask if Superman can fly. It asks, should the world trust someone who can't be stopped? And should he trust the world back? In The Dark Knight, Batman has every reason to kill the Joker. One life could save hundreds. But if he crosses that line, what's left of him? This is what superhero stories do. They take abstract questions and make them punch you in the gut. But here's the real power of the superhero story. They're not a genre, they're a canvas, and you can tell any kind of story. Tragedy through Batman, political satire through Peacemaker, grief through Superman, intimate drama through Joker or The Flash, surreal stories about Harley Quinn laughing at everything, including herself, but underneath her chaos, a real journey of identity, healing, and letting go. And this is what people forget. Superheroes don't have to be the same. They don't have to follow one tone or formula, because they're vessels. You can fill them with tragedy, horror, romance, politics. They're just waiting to be used well. Which brings us to now. A new DC universe is starting and everyone is asking the wrong questions. Will it be dark or funny? Will it compete with Marvel? Will it make money? But none of that matters. Not really. The real question is, what stories will it tell? Because the power isn't just in the hero, it's in the storyteller. And James Gunn has the mic. What we do with superheroes says more about us than it does about them. Today we're standing at the edge of a reset. A new DC universe is coming. But this isn't just another reboot. It shouldn't be. It's a chance to remember why these stories matter in the first place. Because superhero fatigue isn't about too many films. It's about too few stories that actually have a soul. People don't need more content. They need more meaning. So if James Gunn and his team are going to carry the DC legacy forward, they're not just making movies, they're shaping modern myth. And with that comes a challenge. Like we mentioned, these heroes aren't just characters, they're archetypes. Superman is the idea that someone with ultimate power can still choose kindness. Wonder Woman is the idea that truth matters, even when it hurts. Batman is the idea that even in total darkness, you can make your own light. Forget that, and the stories collapse. Because these heroes don't live in a vacuum. They reflect us. Each generation reshapes its icons, not for trendiness, but for truth. What does a 2025 Gotham look like? What does truth mean in a post-truth world? What does it take to believe in hope when the world feels broken? The DCU can't just be cinematic. It has to be aware. And most of all, don't be afraid to take risks. Superhero stories aren't just a medium. They aren't a formula. Tragedy, political satire, magic realism, existential drama, you can do it all. The best DC stories have always dared to be weird, human, and mythic, sometimes all at once. So don't chase tone, chase truth. Let the story decide what shape it needs to take. So here's what I hope to see. Not a slate of blockbusters, but a vision. And here are a few stories I think the DCU should tell. Superman, not as a god, but a man learning how to carry the weight of belief. A film about trust between hero and world, between past and future. Wonder Woman, the warrior of truth, in an age where truth has no fixed shape. A philosophical epic about honesty, contradiction, and compassion. Martian Manhunter, a story about grief, memory, and trying to belong in a world that never asked for you. Alien, not because he's green, but because he's alone. Teen Titans, not sidekicks, not second-generation heroes, but the first generation raised entirely in the digital age, trying to build real connection in a world that trades it for spectacle. And to be honest, this does seem to be the focus James Gunn has on his new take on the DC universe, which is really exciting. We see scripts getting approved because they're good, not because they need content. Let's take a look at Clayface. If done right, it could be extraordinary. He's not just a shapeshifter, he's the perfect metaphor for identity in flux, for the masks we wear to survive, for the stories that change depending on who's telling them. In a world obsessed with performance and image, Clayface isn't just a villain, he's relevance, waiting to be written. These are just my thoughts, my hopes, the stories I'd love to hear. And at the end of the day, this isn't just up to James Gunn and his team, or Warner Bros., or me. These heroes belong to all of us. They've always been mirrors. So let's ask ourselves, what do we want to see in them next? Drop it in the comments. What superhero story do you think we need right now? Not your favorite character, not your dream casting. Your story, your theme, your question. Because in the end, that's all a superhero is. A question in a cape. And it's time we start answering it again.